Well, hello, and first of all, a very Merry Christmas to all of you watching, and a Happy New Year. It's the At Odds Pod Christmas special, recorded with all the Boxing Day sport in mind. We're going to cover off King George, find you the winner of that brilliant race, and of course, we've got an absolute feast of football to get stuck into. Joining me as ever, it is Sam Farley, fresh from Qatar. Sam, how are we doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. How are you doing, boss?
All right, all right. Pleased that we're going to have a little break. Great load of sport to get stuck into. And one man that rarely takes a break when it comes to sniffing out some value went to Man City last night is our very own Jake Ashton. Jake, all good?
The Carabao Cup is the biggest trophy in England, Buzz. That's all I will say.
Yeah, suddenly very important, of course, now that you've managed to knock out Liverpool. We will very, very quickly just wrap up the World Cup because we did do a brilliant little tipping show. Some of us did better with our selections than others. When the highlight I've got to shout about is Matthew Leckie to score one goal or more for Australia at evens, probably suggests that my World Cup wasn't that profitable. Sam, well done. You got the Messi golden ball at 12s. I think that was the biggest price winner we had. And also, you tipped up something else, didn't you, as well, at a big price that won?
Yeah, Cody Gakpo to be top scorer for the Dutch. He was. I bet on him every game to score as well. Really big prices for every game, and it obviously in the groups worked really well. Not so much in the knockouts, but can we just say, Paredes yellow cards? What a guy! What an absolute liability of a guy that got me out of trouble many times during the World Cup. What a guy!
Love that.
Yeah, good shout. Jake, you managed to get the outright winner for us, which is a good job someone did, because it would be a bit embarrassing with 3 stabs at it if we didn't manage to find the outright winner. Argentina, the right winners for you?
Yeah, Buzz, I'd love to turn around and say, I'm a tipping expert. I picked them because I knew they was going to win straight off. A lot of it was just the whole romance side of it and just really wanting Messi to win it if England didn't. So I know Farley goes mad at that. Farley's that World Cup final for Farley was basically like watching his own funeral, I think. But Argentina won. Amazing. What a fight. To be honest with you, lads. Is it the best World Cup final ever?
Oh, we could
in
debate this.
our recent times.
This is recency bias kicking in massively, by the way. It was a good World Cup for me. I'd score it a 7.5 out of 10. But there were a hell of a lot of 0-0s people seem to have forgotten at halftime or like dull game. There were lots of dull games. And the final was probably the best final I've ever seen of a final. So I guess that elevates it up. And let's be honest, when you think back to a World Cup, you probably don't remember the fact that you sat through and watched, some pretty dull games. You remember the final because it's epic. So 7.5 out of 10 for me, not the best World Cup ever.
Yeah, I get that. To be honest with you, lads, too, the final itself, the first 80 minutes was just Argentina walking all over France, really, wasn't it? And then France kicked on, 70 minutes, whatever it was. Farley, you were over there. Any different to us being here watching it at home? I know me and Buzz was enjoying the full days of games every 2-3 hours. What was it like for you over there?
It's good fun. Enjoyed it. What I actually think 4 games a day. I think in the last World Cup we had it once, maybe twice. Yeah. I actually think it's too much. Okay. I prefer 3 games a day and 4 on the odd day. I think it's quite nice. But it was just relentless. You're just constantly watching games. And the first day off I had without going to a game or watching a game was so good. I actually felt like I needed the break. But no, a good World Cup. I think there are a lot of people out there on social media, particularly, really keen to crown it the best World Cup ever. It wasn't the best World Cup ever. It wasn't even the best World Cup in the last 2 World Cups. Russia was better, but the final was good. Really drama packed. But again, I think you look back at a lot of the great finals. You got Man United in '99. That wasn't a particularly good game either.
Yeah,
that just had drama at the end, and I feel like this is the same. I'd say this game, for example, wasn't as good as France-Argentina last time around. That was an absolutely wild game. So yeah, I think Boz said it best. Bit of recency bias. Very, very good World Cup by all means, but by no means was it this sort of classic that everyone's talking about. I don't think, at least.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we'll probably look back at this World Cup in 20 years' time, thinking how massive of a job Qatar did in terms of sport washing. But that's a conversation
Can I ask
for
you guys
another
a quick
day.
question?
Wow.
Super quick question. What do you guys think about the Winter World Cup format? Because from going to it, I love the fact you're going somewhere hot in the middle of winter. It's actually really good, and changed my mind on it a little bit.
I think what will happen within our lifetimes is you will get a rotated World Cup, which will go everywhere, and the calendar will have the president is set now that they can move the calendar. So there's no reason that will ever rule it out. Obviously, Saudi are going for what, the 2030 World Cup, is it? Believe they've got Ronaldo, this deal where he's going to end up in Saudi Arabia as part of that. Rumblings were Messi's already pre-signed to support that over an Argentina World Cup bid, which is awful, isn't it, when you think about it?
That'd be
I guess it
glorious.
shows everyone's got his price. But yeah, for me, I think we'll end up with some sort of weird middle ground where it'd be every 3 years the World Cup, and the international calendar will just have to be rejigged. Would I like another Winter World Cup? I prefer the summer one. It didn't. I think, Sam, you'd have found it surprising over here how little people out, like my mum would have been a good example. Usually gets really into a World Cup. She watched the England games, but she wasn't talking about anything else. Didn't get much news coverage outside of the negatives as well till things started going well for England. Yeah, don't know. Preference for me is still summer.
Fair. All right, guys, we are 6 minutes in now. We've not actually talked about any of our bets that are coming up. So let's quickly move on. And let's go straight into Boxing Day, the best day of the year. I'm going to go as far as to say for football fans. Is that?
I mean,
it's
bold? Up there. It is bold, but I know Boz will probably bring out that meme template again, where Boxing Day 1963, whatever it was.
No,
Footy Ackums.
Yeah, well, they'll definitely have it tweeted at some point, 100%.
It's a good day, isn't it? Boxing Day. Obviously, the game's being a bit more split. It's a bit strange, this restart as well, and I guess that'll be factored into some of my thinking. But yeah, I've kind of tried to keep abreast of what some teams have been doing during the World Cup break, and does seem to be a bit of variance between how some teams have played several friendlies. Most of their squad's been intact, so they've not had to worry, I guess, about disruption. And other teams seem to have suddenly gone, oh, blimey, the Premier League's back next week. Let's play 2 friendlies in the space of 6 days. That's us sorted. My tip is going to be, for my side, Crystal Palace to get the better of Fulham, with Zaha to score or assist and Palace to win, getting around 2-1 for that little combo. Palace ticking over really nicely. Bulk of the squad have been about. They've played several friendly games. Zaha did manage to miss a penalty in one of them as well. But we've been kept pretty busy. Vieira's been there, very present, and I'm fairly confident that against the Fulham side that surely will be missing Mitro because he went to the World Cup on one leg and seemed to just about get through it, didn't he? I think we'll pose a real threat at home and should get 3 points. And I think 2-1's a nice price. Zaha will play the 90 and probably be involved in any goals if we score.
I like that. And what you mentioned about Mitro's kind of an interesting thing, really, because this feels almost like the COVID era that you don't really know who's actually going to be turning up on match day, which is a little weird. And I think we're going to probably have that for Boxing Day and probably the games on, I think, is it the 30th or something as well? Yeah. So I think that's going to be a little element to definitely stay on track on. But I'm going to give you my bet, guys. And I actually couldn't believe it when I was doing a bit of research for this. I'm going for Arsenal and both teams to score. 9-4 is the price there. And this genuinely blows my mind. Out of 6 games at home this year at the Emirates, in the Premier League this is, Arsenal have won 5 of those with BTTS.
Wow.
Which I've not heard of that stat, which really surprised me because I feel like that's one that would have popped up, but it came up in my research. A game against West Ham. I think West Ham are probably one of those teams that are ideal for a win and BTTS bet because they'll quite often score 1 goal a game, but they will concede a few. Arsenal probably not the team they were with Gabriel Jesus, you'd assume. Eddie Nketiah is going to be up front. You'd think with Saka and Martinelli probably coming back and playing out wide. But yeah, 9-4. I think this is a really, really good one. And one thing I also wanted to mention on top of this, I had a little look at all the bookies today. A couple of them already offering little things, like one of them's offering a £2 ACCA. I think there's another bookie's doing similar. Keep an eye on them on Boxing Day because there will be some good promos. They want to lure you back in after Christmas. So definitely spread your betting around and take advantage of any of those promos if you see them.
Yeah, I agree. Definitely. One thing I will say to add on to that too is, though, make sure, as always, you do gamble responsibly, because this time during Christmas, you might get your Christmas money and think, you know what, yes, let's put it all in Boxing Day. Let's just blow it all. Just don't be silly when you're betting. There's no point in it. I know I've been the worst for that in the past, especially over the last couple of weeks with the darts coming on. Like, yes, I am now an expert at the darts, but nah, definitely not. No chance. I'll wrap up Boxing Day's best bets for me. I did have a little double on this game, the Leicester against Newcastle game, but I've just seen that Maddison will likely be out injured for this with a knee injury, apparently, according to Brendan Rodgers. So it's just going to be a single for me, and that's Almiron to score or assist in that game at 23-10. Now, before the World Cup...
You're doing a score assist bet?
Yeah.
Are you Sam Boswell in disguise?
He's caught my illness.
I've caught the bug. Now, Miggy Almiron, arguably the form player in the league before the World Cup. And as you mentioned yourself, Boz, I think it was you, Boz, you said it. We don't know what's going to happen here, to be honest, with the players, whether or not they'll just pick it up as they left off, really, or whether or not it's going to be, we're going to take a few weeks to get used to it. I know last night's game, the City-Liverpool game, may actually blind a few people and think that, it's going to be the same. Every game's going to be high intensity. The player's going to be back at it. We may not get that. We may not. But I think Almiron to score or assist is a massive price in that game with a Leicester side who, let's be honest, we don't know what Leicester side will turn up. It's been like that throughout the season. Buzz, Brendan Rodgers is still in a job there. How is he still in that job?
I don't know. Listen, maybe Leicester have done the right thing by standing by their man, or maybe it's because they can't afford to sack him and he's not walked away. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. They've got to try and get some results. He did start to turn the ship around, I think, but this next period of time is so crucial for Newcastle. This is, and I kind of wonder if Eddie Howe's overachievement to this point could get him into a bit of bother, and that sounds mental, doesn't it? He's obviously got the quarterfinal of the Carabao Cup. They've got potentially, I need to check who they've got in the third round of the Cup. Sorry, really ignorant of me. I don't know who they've got in the FA Cup, but I do sort of wonder if they go and take a few, let's say they get 3 defeats in a row.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling that certain spoilt Newcastle fans might just get on his back a bit. And I worry a little bit that he could. But no, do you know what I mean, Sam? The expectations and the level's been built now.
Yeah.
And almost sometimes has he been too successful early? And if he can't keep the standards up, I'm not saying I'm going to back him next to go, but he's possibly on my radar,
I think he's safe this season. And I do think from the way they went about their transfer business, they do seem to be acting quite rationally, the new owners. But I do think you have a valid point about potential overachievement because, and I don't want to start wars with the Toon Army or whatever they call themselves. If there's one fan base in English football that thinks they deserve better than what they have, it is them. And they are constantly thinking, we're a big club. We're a massive club, we are.
Wow.
You
just said
nothing.
you didn't want to start wars with a fan base, and then you've just gone and absolutely butchered the geo accent of
I shouldn't have done
Newcastle. I mean, let's try not upset the entire Jordan Commission. What it's worth, we're trying to be complimentary somewhere.
Yeah, it's a great club, and they have a great fan base, and they stood by their team when they were crap. But there does seem to be a certain arrogance that they're one of the Premier League's biggest teams, which in reality, because they were second in like 95 or something, doesn't make it true. And I'm sorry, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Hey, Jake, we're not doing Secret Santa on air, but I might just go wrap up a shovel in the garden to give to Farley because he just dug his own grave rather successfully there.
Well and truly. Should we move on then, boys? Should we move on to the Tuesday and Wednesday bets? Because it isn't just Boxing Day where we're seeing Premier League football take place. It's literally right the way through. So Tuesday and Wednesday's best bets, we've got Chelsea v Bournemouth, United v Forest, and Leeds v Man City. So, Boz, you start off, mate, because your bet 9-1 is for your small price.
Listen, we've been speaking a bit about we're not sure how teams are going to come back, and let's talk about Chelsea, shall we? 2-7 to beat Bournemouth. Now, let's just remind ourselves, Chelsea before that break were awful. They were really moderate. Graham Potter was still finding his feet. They got beat by Newcastle, beat by Villa. City obviously beat them in the cup. Lost to Arsenal. Weren't scoring many goals. Champions League, I suppose, would be a bit of a brighter spark. But in the league, they hadn't scored more than 2 goals. You've got to go back to the 16th of October since they've scored 2 goals in the league. So, plucky old Bournemouth, new owners now. I've got a little bit of hope for Bournemouth. They've backed Gary O'Neill. Be interested to see if they stick with that, if they do take a pummeling or two. But 9-1, Bournemouth to get the win. It's just a price that's too big. The bigger bet I'll have is Bournemouth +2 at 8-11. That'll go into my ACCAs. Because I can see Bournemouth getting them to half-time. I'm not saying Chelsea are definitely going to get beat or anything mad. I just think it's just a price thing. And, looking at the games, I'm happy to take Chelsea on here. 8-11 for 2 Bournemouth. That'll do me.
No, I rate that a lot. Farley, your bet is an anytime scorer bet for the United Forest game.
Yeah, it is. But I've got to say, I like Boss's bet. Like 2 to 9 odds. That's an implied probability of over 80% that they win that game, and there definitely isn't an 80% chance they win that game. I don't think so. I think you found
the other thing to
there.
add really quickly. How many of Chelsea's squad have been away at the World Cup? It's not like Potter's had them sat there being able to work with them, whereas Gary O'Neill's probably had. Okay, he's had a few at the World Cup, but Potter's not had the time to do anything with them. You got the likes of Rudiger who's come. So you haven't got the likes of Rudiger. What am I saying? Absolute nonsense. Kai Havertz thinking,
Kai Havertz, always Kai Havertz.
Player of the tournament.
Always Kai Havertz.
Listen, lads, if he got through after that hat trick, it was a runner at 66. But there we go. But they haven't had the chance to do anything with them. What's he going to do? Stick Raheem Sterling back at left back again? Who, by the way, we haven't got the time to talk about it now, but. Yeah, he was a very strange choice to come on for Southgate in that game when we needed to win. But there we go. That's a different story for another day. Go back to talking, Farley, before I get annoyed about England again.
Look, one of my favourite players on the planet. Love the guy. I know Jake hates him because Jake hates anyone who does good and charity work. But Marcus Rashford, anytime goal scorer, 15-8 against Nottingham Forest. I really do like what Ten Hag is doing at Man United, and I think it's not going to happen this season, but I do think they'll be contending in maybe not even next season, but in the season after that, I think definitely, and they will kind of make that progression. They're playing a lot better, and there was probably about 18 months where Rashford really, you were starting to think, is this decline terminal, or is this just form? And I think Ten Hag, to his absolute credit, has done a brilliant job kind of revitalising him, and he looked good before the World Cup. He looked fantastic at the World Cup. I thought we probably should have played a bit more. But obviously England have quite a lot of depth in that position. Hit that beautiful free kick against Wales. Scored in the old Carabao Cup a couple of days ago as well. Really nice, almost like a Messi-like dribble from his own half. Really nice goal. And Forest are so bad defensively that I just think Rashford anytime, 15-8 is... I think it's such a good bet. I love it.
So there's probably 5 or 6 big leagues around Europe, tens of thousand players who play in those leagues. Marcus Rashford's one of your favourite players.
Yeah, I think he's just a good bloke.
Right,
I don't think it's that bad, is it?
Let's just move to the next day, the 28th of December, City Leeds. Great day. my 29th birthday that day, actually, lads. So
Wow.
I'm going to be very drunk watching that game.
Christ, you don't look a day older than 35.
Thank you, mate. City win and both teams to score is my bet. 13-8. I think we look vulnerable at the back, to be honest. And Ruben Diaz being out for a month now, I think there's a chance that Leeds can score in this game, but I do think we will win. It's a massive game for Erling Haaland, this one, because obviously he's Leeds born, Leeds fan growing up for the first few years. He says, although he says he's a City fan too, as he always does, he'll probably say he's a Real Madrid fan when he plays for them in 2 years' time. But 13-8 is a decent price for this bet, which is a bet that's usually shorter than that in the games that we play. So again, Leeds, you never know what Leeds will turn up, but they do look like they've got a goal in them at times. And again, pre-World Cup, they got that result at Anfield, and they just always look like they can get a goal in. So I think that wraps up Boxing Day, Tuesday and Wednesday quite well, to be honest, boys.
Yeah, and it's now time for our regular feature, Banker Bust and Draw.
Yes.
We occasionally get full houses here. I've purposely tried to not replicate what the guys have done, and I picked last. So we've got a decent spread. Farley, kick us off, please, with your banker.
Banker, Man City. You just spoken about them, Jake, but I think they are just too good. And to be honest, I actually looked at your team. You didn't have quite as many players, at least deep into the World Cup, as I would have thought. So I think you're going to be in kind of good fitness and ready to take on Leeds. Yeah,
good shout. My banker, I'm going for United, mainly for the reasons that Farley's outlined about Marcus Rashford. I just think Man United, they finally got rid of the Ronaldo saga, call it what you want. I was gutted as a neutral that it didn't work out, because I loved having a big name player back in the Premier League. But crikey, the baggage that all brought. And Ten Hag now should be in a really strong position. He has basically won the war, if you like. Everyone's got to do what he wants. I think he is going to get the time he needs, and I think he's building something there. Forest, for me, don't think Cooper still knows the best team. I think he deserves to be given the season if they go down to try and bring him back up. But I don't think their sign every single player approach is going to work. Jake, your banker, please.
Yeah, my banker at Arsenal, and because we didn't have a lot of football in the last month, I thought I'd watch Arsenal's friendlies too, to add on to the 4 games a day.
Wow, you must be on some sort of register.
I just love watching football 24/7, boys. I watch it all the time. Like, when you ask me if I've ever watched Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad, no, I've not. I just watch football. So, anyway, Arsenal 1-2, good price. They won the 2 games that I watched in pre-season. Well, I say pre-season, it is technically pre-season, I guess. And he looked well, considering they was missing quite a lot of players. Last time out, though, they did get beat last weekend against Juventus. So whether or not that's something going forward, maybe, but I think Arsenal are going to be too strong for West Ham. The West Ham side, who I'm surprised that they didn't replace him.
Sacramento.
I'm surprised they didn't replace David Moyes, to be honest, boys. I thought the managerial merry-go-round would have really gone off in this little break, and it hasn't at all.
Trouble is, Jake, I think everyone saw it as ideally a perfect place to sack a manager, but in reality, is it all that half your team aren't there? You've got to give a couple of them weeks off. I don't know. I also think his European campaigns probably kept him in a job.
Yeah, maybe. That's a good shout too. But I think if it carries on going the way it has been going in recent weeks and months, then his job might be under threat. But yeah,
we'll get stuck into that managerial market next week, I suspect. Once we've got a round of Premier League games under our belt, I can see some change. Next up is our bust. I picked Chelsea for reasons I explained why I'm backing Bournemouth. I'll probably actually lay Chelsea as well on one of the betting exchanges. Farley, your bust is curious this week.
Yeah, it's Liverpool, and I do think they will likely win, but they are odds on away at Villa. You've got Emery is obviously in charge at Villa now. Really good record against big teams generally. Defensively, always so strong. Villa haven't had that many people away either, so he would have had time working with these guys. Whereas Liverpool, they're still missing quite a few defenders. I don't know exactly what's going on with Konate, when he's going to be actually available for selection. Joe Gomez, I think, is absolute trash. And I look at them and I'm still not totally convinced they are that good at the moment. And against a Villa at home, a Boxing Day crowd, Emery just parking the bus. I don't want any part of that bet, I'm afraid. It might
Villa
be
won't have the keeper though, will they? They won't have the World Cup Golden Glove winning keeper.
Oh,
the
yeah.
one who should have been booked earlier in the shootout. Yeah, I'm not bitter.
That's Sam Bitter Farley there on his pick for
Hate
a bust. Right, I suppose now, Jake, did I get your bust? Have I
You
got
didn't
completely
get my
wrong? No, I
bust.
haven't.
No.
I like your bust. I liked your bust. Yeah, go on.
Spurs away to Brentford. I know we always say never back the early kickoff, but I think this game is going to be one of them where it's going to be decent for betting, to be honest, boys. I think we're going to see goals. I think we're going to see a good Brentford performance. I know, again, I said about, can we talk about pre-World Cup? What happened then? Last game for Brentford, they beat us at the Etihad, and they looked fantastic too. Thomas Frank tactically was superb in that game, really. He set up so well. And then, they beat us, and it just made me miserable. I've had 6 weeks to sit on that. But now, are Spurs going to be Harry Kane-less, do you reckon?
No, he'll play, but I think he probably won't look as sharp as you'd like. I'm still not unconvinced that he didn't play through several slightly more serious niggles with England.
Yeah. But 10 to 11, it's just too short for me, boys. I think I'm surprised the odds on. It may even touch evens when it gets to kick off.
No problem. I like it, Jake. I like it. Draw for me, Southampton-Brighton. Please don't even try and call this a South Coast derby, Sky Sports, or whoever's covering the game, Amazon Prime. This is not a derby game. This is two sides where Southampton, they really are still stinking out the Premier League for me, to be frank. I'd like them flushed this year. Hopefully, they'll disappear down the tube for a few seasons. Brighton themselves, begrudging respect for as a Palace fan. They have bought very well. Obviously, McAllister's not going to be hanging around there too much longer. He'll be getting his move soon. Tony Bloom will get another massive wedge of cash, reinvest in some brilliant players they use finding through stats, and again, do really well. But I can just see this being a bit of a draw. That's where my head's at there. Jake, your draw, interestingly, I think it's been an entertaining draw.
Yeah, I think it will be an entertaining draw, an entertaining game. Leicester Newcastle, I feel that kind of game has got draw written all over it, to be honest. And again, we've said this in recent weeks, in recent pods, where it is a case of how Newcastle will turn up. Will they be like they have been playing and look class, or will it be one of them where they start off slow and then Leicester come into it a bit more? But draw written all over this game for me, definitely.
Fair enough. Farley, your draw, please.
My draw, it is Boxing Day, and of course there is a turkey still left over. Everton versus Wolves. It is the most nailed-on 0-0 I've ever seen. Everyone's going to be like, oh, it's high scoring on Boxing Day. Do the ACCA. It's going to be that game that lets them down. I promise you.
No, we're not in 1963. We
are. Yes,
we don't get 6 threes. Like this is gonna be, honestly, if your child has been naughty over Christmas and you want to punish them, put this on in front of the box and take the remote away and make them watch it. It's going to be horrendous, this game.
I'd rather watch Emily in Paris.
Well, what I will say is, on that 1963 day, the only game that was under 2.5 goals featured Everton.
Oof. I mean, those are the sort of useless stats and points that are reasons why people watch us, Jake. Big thank you. Right.
I can tell you've worked in social media too long that you actually know that. All right. Now it is Christmas, and a lot of people go see their families abroad in different places. We're not doing that. We're getting on a plane to go to another country and do some betting. And I see Jake doesn't have a bet here.
No.
I see Boz doesn't have a bet here. So I am going to be on my ones. I'm going to get a flight over to Istanbul.
Keeping it Christmas themed.
Yeah. One thing I love on Christmas is Christmas Day football. That's awful. That's awful, Jake.
Yeah.
One thing I love on Christmas, as I mentioned, is football. And you have to thank the Muslims and the Jews for that. Because the Islamic countries and the Jewish countries, i.e. Israel, always have games on Christmas Day. And Turkey, the Super League, has games, and one of them is Galatasaray versus Istanbulspor. And you can stop laughing. You get 4-6 on Galatasaray and over 2.5 goals. Galatasaray will win this game, and they have had over 2.5 goals in 4 of their 5 games at home. They play a rubbish Istanbulspor team. 4-6, really good price. Gives you a little something. I think it's 4 p.m. on Christmas Day. Get stuck into that. It's going to be great fun.
I mean, I have 3 things to raise here. First of all, watching football on Christmas Day, I'd have had Jake down to be doing that on his iPad at the dinner table, way over you, Farley. You should be disappointed in yourself because that's just stinky. Your bet reasoning makes a bit of sense, I suppose. I will give you that. And yeah, listen, the one thing I would say is we all like to sort of do a little bit of sporting betting, don't we, around Christmas? And you have got sometimes you get the Boxing Day test match, of course, if it's an Ashes years where we're down under. Also get the opportunity to get stuck into NFL, NBA. But yeah, I mean, I just find it ironic you're sat there celebrating a Christian celebration, but you're delighted that people of other faiths continue to play football so you can have a flutter after
As
dinner.
I always say, martial art. Now let's move on now to
just quickly before we move on. The minute I would have got for my foreign football bit, I want to ask you guys a question. Does either of you want to give your opinion on Dele Alli, because he's overplaying in Turkey with Galatasaray, and I just don't have a clue what's going on with him.
Isn't it?
Yeah, well, he's like
he got hooked after 20 minutes yesterday. I think it was. We were recording this just before Christmas.
Yeah,
he that young man. I don't know what's going on. I'm not trying to allude that I know something that's not in the public domain because I don't.
Yeah,
I think clearly he needs to sit down with somebody that can help remotivate his career, be that some sort of life coach, therapist, football coach, whatever it is. His hunger has gone. His interest in the game clearly seems limited. I have no idea if something's gone on in his life, but you really wouldn't. We don't know the full picture with these people.
No.
We've all had personal, and professional peaks and troughs, and I am a little bit curious to wonder if there was something that's affected him off the field, because it's unreal, this fall from grace, and he's going to end up back in the UK at some point. And I really hope someone can get the best out. I don't know who it would be, but
same.
I half wonder if he might just retire. It just stinks of an early retirement, young.
Yeah,
Farley, is he going to end up at Plymouth or?
No, I think his ego wouldn't let him go to a team that low, to be honest with you, because he was so good at the time. At times,
Yeah.
Like he looked like 100. Well, the rumors were 100 mil to Real Madrid. Yeah, it's really sad. Really sad. But again, he is playing in Turkey, and he will be playing on Christmas Day, 1 p.m. So I will be tuning in. But like Christmas, you said, I think he could always do with just taking 6 months off.
Yeah.
Like when his contract's out, or whatever, take 6 months off, go work out what you want to do with your life. Hopefully, if something's gone wrong, you can clear up any traumas or whatever, then crack on again.
Do you know where he would have gone if this was the mid-2000s? Big Sam Allardyce would have got him at Bolton and would have got him playing. Someone like him.
Yeah.
I can't work it. He needs some sort of someone that can just really get their arm around him and sort him out. But anyway, let's hope he does, because I do think, and I tell you what, lads, at his prime, he would have been an absolute monster for England.
I know.
That's
what my favourite.
But listen, we've got Jude Bellingham now, so I guess it's not all lost. Right, so we've managed to stamp the passport and come back from Turkey. And now we're going to mention the EFL. Obviously, great. Loads of you will be going to Boxing Day games. Jake, you're not putting a bet up here. I'm not putting a bet up here. But Farley, you've got something for us, and it's the big Hollywood team, Wrexham.
Yeah, technically it's not actually even in the EFL, are they? But I've gone down to the conference. Wrexham, and this is one if you're going to do an ACCA on Boxing Day, and let's be honest, we all go and put on an ACCA on Boxing Day. I just recommend chuck this in. It's only 1-2, so it's not one you're going to do as a single, but it could just top up your ACCA. Wrexham at home to Solihull. Solihull actually half decent, but Wrexham have won all 10 games at home this season. And yeah, normally I want these teams owned by sort of celebrities or, chucking in the money. I want them to fail. But I must admit, I've been watching that documentary, got a bit of a soft spot for them. I actually want them to get into the Football League and have a little stab at it. But yeah, 1 to 2, really good price for a team that are very, very good in that division.
Yeah, I like it. Boz, let's get cracking, mate, because this is your little period now. This is where I'm expecting you to give me and Farley some great tips for a massive day of racing on Boxing Day.
Yeah, 77 races in the UK and Ireland. They come thick and fast. Don't try and have a bet in all of them because you definitely will do your money. We'll talk about the King George, though, which is the highlight. I suppose there's the big Grade 1 race at Kempton. I'll be there, slightly hungover, with a festive hat on, I'm sure. King George is a chase, so it's over the big fences, over 3 miles. Tends to be a good pointer towards the Gold Cup. You get the likes of Quarto Star won this en route to winning the Gold Cup. Likes the long run. Gold Cup winners won this race. Kempton is a flatter track, so it does suit the speedier types, which is quite an interesting makeup. The long-term anti-post favourite has been Brave Man's Game for Paul Nicholls. Paul runs 3 in the race. He has Hitman in here as well as Frodon. Frodon's a popular favourite, you may remember. Bryony Frost will ride him from the front and possibly will be setting the pace. Paul's record in the race is unprecedented. 13 times he's won it as a trainer. Brave Man's Game was the long-term favourite. However, he's now drifting out to around 9 to 4 and has been usurped at the top by Le Preze for Venetia Williams. Now, this horse, I think, is very curious. They ran it in a handicap on seasonal reappearance at Newcastle, which not many would do. That was actually on probably faster ground than he'd liked, and he absolutely sluiced up, beating a horse into second that looked fairly progressive and was rattling up a sequence and had to give him about 1.5 stones. A few connections that own the horse have suggested that, maybe the track won't suit. I'm not too worried. He won a Silly Isles over 2 mile 4, 3 miles around here. Yes, it's a bit speedier than he liked, but I think he's a very good horse. The stable are in great form going into the Christmas kind of frost over, which slowed racing down a bit. So it's those two kind of at the top. And I'm a bit annoyed that I'm having to tip him at 7 to 4, but Laurent Presse will be my tip because he was a lot bigger 48 hours ago. And further back. From Ireland, we've just got the one running here, which is Envoy Alan, who was a horse that had a huge amount of hype around, ended up changing stables, lost his way a bit, but won nicely at Down Royal last time out. 6 to 1. I couldn't put you off having an each-way steal on him. And I would say Rachel Blackmore had a bit of a nightmare at the track last year riding Manila Indo, and she wouldn't have ridden Kempton too many times. Comes over just for this ride, which she could have been at Leopardstown or Limerick, going through potentially some really nice horses. So I do think it's significant she's here. I think she'll be keen to right the wrong of last year. Hitman needs to prove he can go the distance. A 6-year-old, unexposed, definitely exciting prospect. Sam Twiston Davis will take the ride. He's won the race before. Cracking jockey as well. Not for me, just on the profile of the horse. Royal Pagaille wants it a bit softer. And I think Venetia's got the winner in the favourite. There is a joker in the pack, I think, that needs mentioning, though. Actually, there's 2. Ahoy Seniors really flopped this season, but was very hyped last year and beat Brave Man's Game at Aintree. Some people would say if you've beaten a horse at Aintree, potentially it's because it's the end of the season and the other horse has had a bit of a busier campaign. I think it's brave of Lucinda Russell to come here with this horse. They clearly still think a lot of him. But the one at a massive each-way price, which I'll be putting up as well because I can now, Eldorado Allen was only about 3 lengths behind Brave Man's Game. In the Charlie Hall for the Tizard team, who sadly had reported the news today that Q Card, who won this race in an epic finish against Vitor for the Tizard team, has passed away at 16. It would be lovely to see them claim a big race win. Joe taking over from his dad this season. This horse is definitely going to be a flag bearer for them in the intermediate to 3 mile chase division. And I can see him going one better potentially and causing a bit of an upset at 25 to 1. Last year, Tornado Flyer won the race at a big price as well, so it's not necessarily ruled out. My nap in the race would be Laurent Preze. My each way player be Eldorado Allen. You'll get 3 places. Someone might go 4, but yeah, a cracking King George in prospect. Loads of racing as well. Do keep your eyes peeled. The Irish action will probably be where you'll see some Cheltenham winners out and about. For me, if you had to get a tip elsewhere, I suppose I would probably keep your eye on the Frank Knight Juvenile. That's always a really nice race. Lossiemouth is already odds on for Willie Mullins and will probably end up being the even money favourite for the Triumph should he win. She win again, I should say.
And where and when can I watch the King George, Buzz?
2:30, so it's on before the footy, which is great news.
Cool.
ITV will have it. ITV actually covering more or less all the way through to New Year's Day. You've basically got racing every day on ITV. So if you want your fix of racing, check it out.
Nice. Now, Farley, this is going to be massive because, again, you spoke about festive sports and how you love it all the way through the festive period. NFL, I'm guessing, what do they do? What days do they play? You tell me. And tell
so
me
NFL, I've got 2 tips for you across 2 different sports right now. We're going to start with NFL. So rather than have the games on Sunday with a couple on Saturday like they did last week, obviously Sunday is Christmas Day this year. There's 3 on Sunday itself. I think the first one's at 6 p.m. maybe. I might be wrong on that. I'm not totally sure off the top of my head. I think it's 6 p.m. though. But we do have basically the full Sunday slate has been moved to Saturday. So we've got some great stuff on Christmas Eve, starting a bit earlier as well, which is great. And there's one of these bets that I want to put up 6 p.m. on Saturday. This is Derrick Henry of the Titans to score 2+ touchdowns at 11-4. Now, normally I wouldn't pick somebody to do 2 touchdowns at a price as short as 11-4. Normally you're looking at, I want like double figures really to be putting anything like that up. But the exception here is the Texans have the worst rushing defense in the entire league. They are atrocious. They pretty much, I think they've lost 9 in a row on the spin now. They want that kind of, good pick in the draft. They're not bothered about the season. They're out of playoffs. Then on the Titans side of things, you don't have Ryan Tannehill. He's injured, so they got a backup quarterback who is better at rushing as well. But ultimately, they're just going to lean on their offensive weapon that is Derrick Henry a bit more than they ordinarily would. Then you have Derrick Henry himself. You guys watch a bit of NFL. You would have seen in the last couple of years, he always ends up having these monster games. This season, he's had 3 games, I think, already with 2 or more touchdowns. One of those was against the Texans when they played last time out in Houston. And he has a really good record against the Texans in general. And I think this is, I don't want to say it's a nap because, saying someone's going to score 2 TDs can never really be a nap. But it is a very, very good bet. And 11-4, I think that's one I'm definitely going to be on Christmas Eve. And I'm going to probably maybe double it up with something as well. Then we're going to move over to Christmas Day itself. As I mentioned, there's football to watch earlier in the day, but you will have to use a hooky stream to find that. But later on in the day, you actually have the 3 NFL games I mentioned on TV, on Sky Sports. And also on Sky Sports, you have 5 NBA games back to back. I love the NBA on Christmas Day. And statistically, since I think 2005, there has been a heavy prevalence towards unders on Christmas Day. In terms of points total, unders comes in, I think, at a rate of 2-1 compared with overs. Statistically, it comes up very often. Now, are you going to nail all 5 unders when you put them in? In all honesty, it's probably not going to happen. But every single year I put on this bet, and one year it will land. So the Xmas unders for the NBA, it's 24-1. Just go on your bookie, whatever it is, do under for all 5 of those games. You can bet on them now. They put them up earlier than usual. And the other thing to remember as well is a lot of bookies have an ACCA bonus. A lot of the big bookies especially have an ACCA bonus. So not only will you get your 24-1, you'll also get like I don't know what the percentage would be, like a 15% extra on top as well. So it's one of those fun things that chuck a $5 on, definitely don't go mad. Be responsible with it, but it's one of those things that just kind of gives you a little something to enjoy the games, because if the first one lands, it gives you real buzz for the second one, and you end up in one of my group chats. We bet on this religiously every year. We just kind of get stuck into it, and generally people are getting so angry when the sort of batting average, if you like, is too high, and then you see people miss a few free throws, and like the whole group chat is going absolutely crazy. So it's really good fun. So I really recommend doing that. Very low stakes, as I mentioned, but the Xmas unders and of course Derrick Henry to score 2+ touchdowns are my US sports bets for this Christmas period.
I love it. Now, this is usually a point where I'd come at you with some crazy specials, but to be honest with you, lads, there's nothing going on really without forcing it. Everything now is looking towards the new year, and in the early parts of the new year, we're going to have Love Island and The Apprentice going on. So it's going to be stuff that I can talk about, definitely.
No real bookie takes bets on The Apprentice that's pre-filmed 6 weeks before. It's all a PR stunt. We know this.
Of course.
We know this.
The only other thing to mention in terms of specials, if you do want to bet on things like weather betting and stuff like that, there's a couple of markets out there for Premier League games, and if it's going to snow on the Premier League games, maybe something that you fancy. I was going to come at you. You have your head in your hands, Boz, but be lucky because I was going to come in here with a bet for the Nobel Prize for Literature, but I'm not going to. I'm going to carry on to what we're all here for now. So we're all here for the Boxing Day treble. Now, what we usually do is we usually put our bets in a doc, go through them. I look through it and think, what's going on? I'm going to start the treble with Boz because Boz's pick is empty. And I'm like, what's he going to do? Is he going to just come up with a random surprise or is he going to do something better? What's he going to do?
No, I'm putting Lahon Preze in there at 7-4 to win the King George, and that'll get the bet off to a decent start if you boys are playing football bets that are kicking off at 3 o'clock, and put us in a nice cash out position potentially. I think this horse is the real deal. I've done a lot of coverage for this for work with Sky, and I really feel like I've talked myself into him a bit. But the more I look at it, and it's raining outside here, and I wouldn't be a million miles from Kempton, I just think the ground conditions are going to suit. He's going to absolutely cruise through the race. Charlie Deutsch going to give him a peach of a ride. He'll get us off to a flyer. Aye, 7-4. Let's get involved.
Well, before I ask for Farley to wrap it up, Boz, you did say a 2:30 start. I'll get the bet off to a flyer. I'm going to annoy you now because my start's the early kickoff, 12:30. Never back the early kickoff. Brentford, Tottenham, both teams to score is my bet. They're in the top 5 in the Premier League, both sides for both teams to score. Spurs surprised me, actually. Spurs are third. They've had a decent amount of games already this season where it has been both teams to score. I thought that they'd be very good defensively with Conte, but it's just not been the case. I think that defensively they don't look that strong. And Brentford as well, they're known for letting goals in and scoring goals too. Both teams to score is my pick for this game, and I think we're going to get the treble to a flyer, definitely.
Okay, so we've had Brentford, Tottenham, both teams to score. We've had the King George winners come in. That means we have one more thing to do. Over 2.5 goals, Palace versus Fulham. Now, I don't know if you guys heard, but in 1963, there were a lot of... I'm joking. Basically, my reasoning here is even money, this shout. I think both teams have kind of know how to score and also maybe not necessarily the best defensively. But out of 15 games in the Premier League so far this season, Fulham have gone overs in 13 of those. So I think the trend definitely points towards overs for Fulham, and I'll be following that trend here. So yeah, I think that wraps it up. And you get this Aka over 8-1 best price.
Pretty good by our standards.
It's a good price.
I'm going to put a tenner on the second we.
If you want to play it safe, you could always put Lahon Preze to place in the top 3. Probably be about 1-3. But if you want to play it a little bit safer with the racing side of it, you'd still get half decent Aka.
No, don't do that. This is Boxing Day. Just bet responsibly and let's go for the dub. A responsible dub. That
sounds good to me. I guess all that's left to do is to wish everybody that watches a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We will be continuing our content next year, having all sorts of fun, trying to find you winners on all sorts of sports and enjoying it along the way. But please do like and subscribe. It does help us. It does make us feel much better about life. We don't have a lot in our lives, do we, lads? So let's be honest, seeing a new subscriber is always a very satisfying feeling. All I need to say is, take it away and say Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Ta-ra.